much rain we're going to have, but it's just going to keep on coming on and off all the way through the day. The cloud cover stays with us, and the temperatures, as a consequence, are fairly depressed. Best anywhere, 14 Celsius.
Allan Beswick with you on the phones. 0161 228 2255.
BBC Radio Manchester.
That's a damn sight warmer than my car says it is. I was driving in this morning, and the red light came on, because it's got one of them thermometers outside, or one of them things that tells you what the temperature is outside the car. And the red light came on for frost, and I looked at the little readout, and it said minus 37. I think it might be faulty. It was a bit parky, I'll grant you, but I think it might be faulty. Minus 37 Celsius. Yeah, that's cold, is that? That's your stuff global warming. That's cold. That's your permafrost. Oh, God, yes. So I think it might be faulty. We'll have a look. 0161. I'm not kidding, it is. That's what he said, minus 37. Right cold. 0161 228 2255. You want to join us, you can. Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk, and of course 07786 206 951. And I'm fed up of thinking. I always end up talking about stuff that I've just invented out my head. Why don't you do something for a change? You pick the subject. Go on, I durst you. John in Timperley. Hiya, John.
Yes, good morning, Alan.
Good morning.
I have chosen the subject, actually, because it's frustrating me to know what's going on. But I'm linking together corn crop circles and Banksy graffiti.
Ooh.
I think, well, no, there's not much of a link there, really. But what
I can't see it, but you go and tell me. Go on.
What I'm really keen on finding out is, why do they always maintain that they don't know who this bloke Banksy is that graffiti's all over the place? And why do they always pretend that they don't know who does these corn crop circles? When, after all, they are on private property belonging to people. I'd be bloody annoyed if somebody came and did a corn crop circle on a field I was growing wheat in. And if somebody came and sprayed one of my walls with graffiti, I'd be pretty furious about it. And I don't believe that they don't know who does these things.
Let's deal with them separately, although I understand the link now. The first one, I don't think they do know who does these crop circles, because different people have done them at different times. I don't think it's one person or one group of people doing them.
Well, have you seen the one in the papers this morning?
I've seen the one in the papers. Very elaborate it is, too.
Too clever by far.
Well, I think putting your initials in the snow when you're weeing is pretty clever, but this does take the biscuit somewhat. But yes, I've seen it. It's like a...
mathematical.
Yes, quite. It's a mathematical game, as it were.
And they've got geophysicists commenting on it and all sorts of things, which I'm sure they're killing themselves laughing at the fact that the public probably takes it all in, and it's just annoying and frustrating, and that we're being made fools of by somebody or other.
Well, okay, but let's deal with that first of all. Yes, someone's being made fools of. I'm not altogether sure that it isn't the press that publish them that's being made fools of in the end, because they are turning what is a piece of minor, but nonetheless real, vandalism into...
an art form.
Art form, maybe. When you get to the graffiti and Banksy, I suspect that there are individuals who know who Banksy is, because, frankly, every bit of graffiti isn't done by Banksy.
No, well, it's a spray-on thing through a, what do they call it, a template, isn't it?
I've no idea how the person who does the ones that are attributed to Banksy does them. But the thing I find fascinating is that if Banksy... let us assume he exists as an individual rather than a group. But if he comes along and sprays your wall, you've then got a work of art. So you sell it,
yeah.
You have it chipped off by someone with more money than sense, and they put it on their lounge. But how does Banksy make his money?
Yeah, we're being conned.
Well, indeed we may be, but we're only being conned if we don't know.
Listen, it takes ages to put one of his graffitis up, because they're all quite elaborate duo-coloured and all sorts of things. You have to have scaffolding for some of them. They're on the gable ends of houses, aren't they?
Yeah.
And I'm just annoyed that they think that the general public is being made idiots of.
Yeah, I don't know. Are we being made idiots? If those who know are perfectly happy to have it happen, and those who don't know, who's being done?
So what you're really saying is if somebody came and wanted to put a Banksy thing on one of your gable ends and you could sell it for a couple of 100,000, you wouldn't mind that?
I'd give him the house as well. Feel free.
What about somebody that's pretending to be Banksy?
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? That's where the dilemma begins, because here's Banksy, or works that are attributed to him, or her, should we say. Let us pretend nobody knows. But they always seem to say it's a bloke. I don't understand how he makes a crust out of it. Now, if he doesn't make a crust out of it, then we have to wonder, don't we? We have to say, well, what's he doing? Why is he doing it?
Well, you don't think he's stoking up the things so that he can sell some huge tabletop book in about 10 years' time?
I think the tabletop book's already been sold. I think you can already buy images, but it won't have been written by him. And, of course, if he ever comes along and says, well, it's me, Gov, then it's perfectly possible he'll be prosecuted. But I'm just reading a website now that says this is definitely not the website of Banksy. Okay. Well, I don't know whether that means it isn't or it is, do you? But it claims that Banksy is from Bristol. I mean, not that he's working there now or lives there now, but it claims that he's from Bristol. So there you are.
There must be a joke there somewhere.
And there's the big ones, the big high ones that you say you'd need a scaffolding for. There is a photograph of a bloke on a very tall ladder with one of those large, you know, the kind of brush that the poster pasters put the glue on, with a brush like that, painting on the wall. So I don't know.
Well, I think we're being conned, and I would love to get to the end of it. It is the silly season coming up for newspapers, isn't it? And I think this corn crop circle is probably the start of it.
Well, we've had those. We've had those for a while. Originally, the argument went that they were done by beings from out of space.
Exactly.
Did you fall for that?
No. No. But when it comes to the comments in the papers this morning, where leading geophysicists said this is extremely elaborate, it seems to point to, and it goes on about some scientific number.
You're not won over, are you, John?
I think I'll go back to the football.
That's a high price to pay indeed. Good to talk to you, mate.
Okay, thank you.
0161 228 2255. Can graffiti ever be art?
John Thompson.
Good morning, Sam. Hope you enjoyed your night last night. She got in at 3 o'clock this morning. Looks like a dream this morning. You see, I used to get it in the neck, but it's doubles that I approach things differently now. I've seen what I was on the other end of, and I do the opposite. I'm like Mother Teresa at home.
John Thompson.
It was a super stylophone, and he had a bass end with a thicker stylus. And a you know, sort of playing away there with the bass down there and the high bit up there. It's a little bit like Rolf. He sort of has that low register, and then he goes right up there.
Oh, John Thompson.
Come on, sing a song. La 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 la.
John Thompson. From 11 o'clock on Saturday at BBC Radio Manchester.
Good day to you. 0161 228 2255 if you've something to say.
Allan Beswick with you on the phones. 0161 228 2255.
BBC Radio Manchester.
If you were listening to Heather earlier talking to the former lady of the night, well, maybe she's still one. She's just done a book about being a call girl. I think she said a high-class call girl, but there are those that think that's an oxymoron. They're all slappers. They just charge more than others. Anyway, I don't know. I'm just saying. She, at one point, said, well, like, being a person who engages in prostitution is like being a writer or an artist. It's a calling. She did. Don't look at me. I'm not making it. Oh, well, would I lie to you? She did. That's what she said. So prostitution is now art. Well, if prostitution can be art, so can a painting on the wall that you didn't want there. In other words, graffiti. How very strange. Tony says, good afternoon, Alan. If I may, I would like to raise the issue of recently released Abu Qatada. Amidst all the media frenzy hysteria created by his release, I'd like to point out that Mr. Qatada was not convicted of an offence. However, he spent 4 years in prison and not the 42 days maximum detention period recently agreed, which really is a joke. We must be the laughingstock of the world right now. Now, whether he's guilty or not of the crimes he's supposedly committed, the real issue here is that he was not successfully convicted of these offences, so imprisonment was fundamentally wrong. Don't get me wrong, he may well be a dangerous individual, but my opinion is that he should have been deported years ago. But we are governed by the weak and the spineless, as nobody is prepared to make the decision. We just faff about in this country far too much. Well, that's what Tony says, overlooking the fact that whilst he's not been convicted in this country, he has been convicted in other countries and was in custody awaiting deportation, if you like, awaiting deportation, or indeed moving, because deportation is return to the home country, I think. But anyway, the deportation to one country or another. Jordan was on the list. I believe the United States want to take him into custody to put him on trial for terrorism offences there. But whether or not he should have been in jail for 4 years without trial in this country, clearly one is forced to say he ought not. Terry from Tilsley, a minus 37 degrees in your car. Ever thought it might just be you, says Terry. You can be a frosty bugger sometimes. That's a little harsh. But seeing as how we're on the subject of complaints, how about this one? I won't give you the person's name, because that's unfair on them, really. But a letter of complaint. I am writing to make a complaint about Allan Beswick. Why do the BBC employ him? Is this the only way you can get listeners of his sort? Well, there you are. If you're listening to this, you're the same as me. Police will be round in a minute. Anyway, there you go. I've only just started to listen to BBC Manchester. Until now, I found it very interesting. I do realise I can turn off. I also realise everyone has a right to an opinion. But his childish views about dogs is pathetic. And his point about every dog should have a gun to its head and encouragement of legal dog fighting is not what any organisation should be allowing. If anyone phones in to discuss a point of view, yes, it's free for anyone to discuss, and he can then say his strong loathing of these animals. But not to go this far as to promote animal cruelty in dog fighting aired today, 3rd of June. I realise if he's told about my complaint, he will twist my opinion and make fun of, what a pathetic man. I think you meant to put me in there. Not me, you. Yeah, exactly. I do not know how many people and children have been hurt in Warrington, but do know many people have been murdered by knives and kicked to death by humans. Yes, I do own a dog, and he does smell. Well, I got to tell you, I wasn't expecting that. I do own a dog, and he does smell, but he doesn't hurt me like humans. And I'm more likely to be killed by a human than a dog. Well, that's probably true. I'm not awfully sure why you own a dog that smells, unless, of course, it's a smell you like, which you're fully entitled to do. All I said was, I don't particularly think dogs make nice pets. I think they make nice killing machines, and they do smell. I'm glad you agree with that. And they crap all over the place, and some of their owners are not very good at cleaning up and all of that. What I actually said, and this applies to all sorts of things really, is why are we so fussed about dog fighting? It's our sensibilities, really. Why should the sort of delicate sensibilities of some of us, because I don't actually like animal cruelty, but why should the delicate sensibilities of some of us be imposed upon the rest of us? If two dogs are embarking, that's good. If two dogs are fighting each other, and an awful lot of men and possibly women are watching and betting on it, what harm is done? Now, OK, one dog gets ripped to shreds and the other gets ripped slightly less to shreds, and it's called the winner. One might even get ripped to shreds to death. But they are just dogs. They're not humans. They're not humans. They're not parents gassing their own children in cars. They're not paedophiles. They're not rapists. They're not murderers. It's just two dogs. One rips the other to shreds. So what? No, I wouldn't go. I'd probably go once by means of you ought to experience things when you can rather than just pontificate. But I don't think I'd go again. But what's wrong with that? The dogs get hurt, of that there's no doubt. But when a horse breaks its leg at the Derby or the Grand National, it's not a bundle of laughs for the horse. It's not lying there thinking, hey, I've got another 3, why don't you want one of these? They don't like that either. They don't like it. And don't say they'd have jumped the fence anyway, would they, buggery? That's why you keep horses in fields. If they jump fences because they really like jumping, they jump out and go off. But they don't. Why? Because they don't jump fences naturally. We have to have a little midget on its back, hitting it with a stick to make it jump a fence. Well, what's not cruel about that? Dragging fish out by the mouth, that's bloody cruel. I'm not suggesting it should stop. I'm just saying it's not that much different to dog fighting.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Headline News.
4 British soldiers, one of them a woman, have been killed in an explosion in southern Afghanistan. Their families have been told. The Parliamentary Commissioner for Standards, John Lyon, has partially upheld a complaint into the expenses arrangements of the husband and wife Cheshire Conservative MPs Anne and Nicholas Winterton. And the BBC's been told that thousands of women could be getting hooked on drugs they've been given for depression when they've actually got severe PMT. Manchester's weather, a wet afternoon, windy too, and you can expect a top temperature of 15 Celsius. I'm Mark Edwardson.
Just for balance, I would like to say that, yes, the Wintertons are partially guilty, but it means they're partially innocent as well.
BBC Radio Manchester 2020 traffic.
Well, if you're travelling through the Oldham area of Greater Manchester, Yorkshire Street has been closed off because of an incident between Old Church Street and Brook Street. Around the Mumps Crossroads, it seems there's been some problems with the electrical wiring underground, and it's affecting the one-way system. So do be aware if you're heading around that area, you might get caught up in 1 or 2 delays. In Rochdale, the traffic lights are still out near the Tesco store around Edinburgh Way, junction with Roach Valley Way. Again, do approach with care. Thankfully, though, now all recovery work has been completed in Swinton on the East Lancs Road after 3 vehicles collided near Earlham of the Heights. Don't forget, if you can update me further, call in hands-free 0161 244 4951. I'm Cara Banks.
Decongesting Manchester, one car at a time. 2020 traffic.
BBC Radio Manchester.
John in Offerton. Hiya, John.
Hiya, Alan. It's just a quickie. My wife went to the bank the other week, and she hasn't got much in. She was asking some money out of her super run, and she got a book, and she said, "What's this here?" And the lady said, "What do you mean? Why is it?" She said, "This money here." She said, "You must have had it transferred from somewhere else," and they'd put £10,000 in a bank, and it isn't ours. So she said, "No, it's not mine." And I just wondered, it's been in for about 3 weeks. Are you allowed to have interest on it?
I don't think you are. I don't think you are, because the interest belongs to whoever the 10,000 belongs to.
Yeah. But we've not even had a letter from the bank thanking her for pointing it out.
No, well, that's banks for you. Extraordinary. If any interest is deposited, it will be. I mean, I don't know your wife's account. How often is the interest deposited in an account?
Oh, no, she just has a super unpaid into it, that's all.
So there isn't any interest on it. You see, it may not be. Is it an interest-earning account?
I think there's like a small amount on it.
Yes.
Nothing really.
So they presumably, well, there's nothing when there's out in. It might be something with 10 grand in, but it depends when it's put in. Clearly, at some point, someone is going to say to the same bank or another bank, "Where's my 10 grand?" And they'll take it out again. Has the bank?
We've already reported.
You've already got, yeah, but have they taken it out?
Oh yes, they took it out a few days afterwards.
Right. then I think you're going to have to wait until the end of the interest period to see whether any interest has accrued. And if it does, I'd say nothing and spend it.
Okay.
Because it won't be a lot if it was only in for a couple of weeks.
Been in for 3 weeks, that's all.
So 3 weeks at 5% per annum, and I don't know many ordinary bank accounts that pay that these days. 3 weeks at 5% per annum is not a great deal of money.
No.
But I think they'll probably stop it. But if they don't, if a couple of bob goes in, I'd spend it.
Okay, thanks, Alan.
Just on the basis of I've had the hassle, so I'll have the brass and all. Hey, but don't spend the 10 grand.
No, it's not in now, it's not.
No, well, I think I'd have said now and just put up with it for 6 years and whizzed it away. But then I'm a lot more cruel than you, John. Do have a good day, mate.
Right, thank you.
Cheers. 0161 228 2255. But not a word of thanks, not a letter of thanks from the bank. They're skunks, aren't they? Bankers are skunks. There's no way around it. I don't, ordinary working people like you and me work in banks. But the essence of banking, the way banking operates, they're skunks. They're nasty people. They are. I don't mean the individuals. I mean the systems. They are just nasty. What harm would it have done for that bank to say, thank you very much for pointing this out? Please accept this gift token for 10 quid, or whatever, a bunch of flowers, a bottle of wine, or even just thank you. But they don't. They're horrible. Talking about Abu Qatada, Terry and Tilsley again, being freed from jail. That's Abu Qatada, not Terry. He's not been in jail recently, I hear. You said that there was a chance that he would be sent to Jordan. Well, I don't think Peter Andre would be very happy, but hey, what a way to die. Very good, yes. Very good. She doesn't call herself Jordan anymore, the lady with the big boobs. That's all I know about her. Yeah. She calls herself something else. I think she calls herself by her name, which is rather bizarre. Yeah, well, it had to catch on in the end. Lovely picture on the front page of the Manchester Evening News today. It's... Well, it purports... I wasn't there to take the photograph, but it purports to show Key Street and Deansgate, the junction with Black's on the corner, and I think Sainsbury's on the other corner. Yeah, and that key shop. Yeah, the junction of Deansgate and Key Street, taken, according to the Evening News, at 4:45, 4:45 yesterday afternoon. It's deserted, very nearly. There's a bloke on a bike. It looks like something out of the 1920s, except the cars are a little more... streamlined, I think we'll say, and there's no horses about, and there's a yellow box junction, which of course we never had then, and for the way people use them these days, we're probably not worth having them now either. But there you are. It's empty, virtually, absolutely empty. Motorists have been driven off Greater Manchester roads by soaring fuel prices. This striking image shows Deansgate in the city centre was virtually deserted during rush hour yesterday. The photograph was taken at 4:45, and it was the same story during the morning peak period. MEM photographers also went to a notorious stretch of the M60 at the Irwell Valley near Swinton, and that too was very, very light traffic, looking at the photograph here. So it's interesting, isn't it? Fuel prices have rocketed. The number of vehicles has gone down. So, whatever else the congestion charge will do, sounds like it'll work in terms of diminishing traffic congestion. Whether it works in any other sense, well, who knows, who cares until it happens, but it'll certainly keep the number of cars down if the equation is more cost, fewer cars. And that's without improving public transport. Imagine the situation if public transport actually worked as well. That bloke on the bike wouldn't even be there. Oh, aye, what about bikes on trams? Did you hear him from one of them green lobbies? He says he wants room for bikes on trams. I know. Well, why not? Let's have them all on there. Yeah. What about horses? They should have a bucket of water on the back so you can take your horse on the tram. So you don't even have to ride your bike. You can ride your horse to the tram stop, and then your horse gets on the back. It'd have to cost a bit more than a person, and it wouldn't be allowed to sit down, but I don't think you'd want to. You have your horse on the back and you have a little bucket of water. It'd be fantastic, that. Barry in Middleton. Hiya.
Hi, Alan. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks.
Something else I don't agree with you on, but it's worth a comment, you know, about the dogs being allowed to fight. I'm a dog lover myself, and I disagree with you, but it brought to mind an anecdote that I'd read about Oliver Cromwell and the Puritans in the 17th century. They banned bear baiting.
They did?
Not because it gave pain to the bears, but because it gave pleasure to the spectators.
That's right, yeah, because they were all Puritans, weren't they? And so they weren't into pleasure. How they ever got new Puritans, I don't know.
That was all I wanted to say, Alan.
All right. Well, can I just ask?
Yeah.
I understand that you love dogs, and I understand that, and therefore you wouldn't want to see them harmed and all of that.
Well, can I just clarify? I like certain dogs. There's certain dogs that despise.
That's fair enough as well.
I've got to say that.
That's probably the same with everybody, isn't it? We all like things and we all don't like different things. Yeah. But just what harm would it do if I don't know, out in the wilds of Cheshire, here's you're phoning from where you are, obviously in Middleton. Yep. If, say, in Stockport or Warrington, where I'm from, there was a fight takes place between two dogs, all properly organised, and there's a little arena built, and rather like bullfighting in Spain. Doesn't really affect me at all, because I so rarely see it, and if I went to Spain I wouldn't watch it. So why are you against it in that context?
It makes me blood run cold, because I personally don't like boxing. I don't like to see two people knocking seven shades out of one another. I don't think it proves anything, and I feel the same with dogs. And cocks, they're bred specifically for that purpose, to do the maximum damage to each other, and it just turns my blood cold.
Fair enough. What do you think then of fishing and horse racing?
Well, fishing, I have no argument with that, because my grandson's an avid fisherman. I hate fishing.
Well, okay, you can hate
it. Not because it's cruel, but I find it boring. I know for a fact that I'm cleverer than a fish.
Well, you're probably cleverer than a dog. There's even a fair chance you're cleverer than me, Barry. But the issue about you don't like fishing because it's boring, but what about the other side of it? Getting hold of this species that lives in water and dragging it out of water. It's the equivalent of somebody holding you in water. And letting it flounder about. You know, it doesn't wriggle its tail because it's celebrating. It wriggles its tail because it wants to escape you and get back in the water. So it's not enjoying it.
It isn't. I don't know if it is or not.
Well, you don't know whether the dogs are or not.
Well, I do know they're not.
No, you don't. You're assuming. You don't know. In the same way, we can assume about the fish. Do you think the fish is wriggling about going, yippee, at last, I'm out the water! Hooray! About bloody time and all, I hated that. It's always wet. I'm fed up with the damp. No, they're wriggling about because they're thinking, get me back in the water, I can't breathe, help, I can't breathe. Surely I'm right on that.
Yeah, you are right.
They're not enjoying it.
I've no argument, though. As for horse racing, this fallacy, this thing about they enjoy it, the horses keep on running. They're bred that way, they run.
So would you ban that then?
As far as I'm concerned, yeah, if they banned horse racing this afternoon, Alan, it wouldn't make one.
No, indeed, that's
to my life.
But that's the point I'm making. If they allow dog fighting, it won't make any difference to your life.
No, but that's cruelty. You bring.
But you can't. Now look, you can't have it both ways, Barry.
I can't.
I told you were cleverer than me. Have a good day. You're dead right. You can. You can have it as many ways as you want, mate.
Yeah, Alan.
Read the money in the account tale. My girlfriend is a bank manager. See, I told you they weren't all horrible. That's John in Wigan. My girlfriend is a bank manager. She told me a tale of them putting $5 million in someone's account by mistake. Overnight, £4,000 interest had been added. They had to phone up the lady to tell her it was being taken out. Yes, the system is full of skunks. Oh, but your girlfriend, of course, who's probably in the bank now and therefore not listening, isn't one of the skunks. She's a fine, upstanding citizen. We both agree on that. Don't we? Mike in Worsley. Hiya, Mike.
Good morning to you, sir.
What have you got?
Last Tuesday at 5 a.m. in the morning, we had a burglary.
Okay.
And my wife's handbag was taken. Now, I'll try not to use the name of the bank concerned.
Thank you.
But her credit cards were stolen.
Yeah.
Mine were still in my pocket. So at 5 o'clock in the morning, we rang the emergency number.
Yeah.
And it was overseas, and we were reported the cards being stolen, and she said she would cancel the cards.
Yes.
The police came and we went through all the paraphernalia because other things had gone, etc., etc., etc. But we rang the bank at 8 o'clock when they opened, and again confirmed that me being the major card holder and my wife being the second card holder, that the cards had been stopped.
Yep.
He said, oh yes, cut your cards up, because it'll be no use, you will have to issue new cards for the both of you. So I cut my cards up, put them in the bin. A card arrived last Thursday for Joan, and a bank card, and it was live, she could use it. It
Yeah.
got to Friday, and I rang the bank. I said, look, you know these cards you've had stolen? I said, and I'm waiting for, why have I not got my card? They said, wait until the post arrives on Saturday and see if it's in the post. I said, fine, okay. It being Saturday, the card did not arrive, and I didn't ring them because it was Saturday. You know, I thought, banks don't work on a Saturday, I'll leave it till Monday. When the post arrived on Monday, the replacement card for me was not there. So I rang the bank. You will never believe what they said. We've had no notification of these cards being stolen.
Good God. Well, I suppose, technically, being pedantic, they are correct. Because you notified them that your wife's cards were stolen.
Yes.
But you presumably told them that yours were not stolen.
Yes.
Now, what's happened here, I suspect, is the person at the other end has told you to destroy them, but hasn't issued replacements, or hasn't acknowledged that replacements need to be issued. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
That's an angle that, because we've discussed this to the nth degree till we're fed up of talking about it. And that's an angle I've not thought of, Alan, so...
Yeah, so they weren't stolen.
House points on your side.
Yeah, well, but you're the one...
And I eventually rang the bank and said, now look, what's going on? And of course you've got some lady who is in a huge call centre, huge office block, not her fault, and I blew my top, steam coming out my ears, and she said, don't shout at me. I said, I'm not shouting, it's frustration. And Joan grabbed the phone off me and said, now look, this is the score. We phoned and we spoke to an overseas call centre. Because the lady couldn't speak good English, we phoned at 8 o'clock and repeated the story. Today, I still not have got my cards replaced.
Good Lord.
Now, I'm only ringing up.
When was the conversation at which you were shouting or not shouting or whatever?
Where are we today? Tuesday?
Yes.
Wednesday? It would be Monday.
Monday. And at the end of that conversation, what was agreed?
I'll take a complaint number. Here's my complaint number. I'll pass this through to my boss.
Okay,
etc.
Okay, that's the complaint. So there's two things going at once here. There's the complaint going on. What was said about replacing your personal cards?
They said they'll get it to me as soon as they can.
They'll get it to you as soon as they can.
I've had standard letters saying a new card will be with you in 14 days, but this is some letter that's been just churned off a computer.
Well,
Nobody reads those kind of things.
Well, you did read it because you know what it said.
Yeah, you read it. Nobody reads it at the bank.
But, so what? Well, they don't read it at the bank, but the action to send it to you, they don't just send them. The bank computer
They must
doesn't
know to send it.
Precisely. The bank doesn't generate those letters automatically, so it will come automatically after the card has been ordered. So I would imagine that the card is now, somewhat belatedly, because of the misunderstanding is the nicest way of putting it, but I would imagine the card is now on its way.
The reason for my call is if anybody else suffers the loss of a card outside hours, as soon as the bank opens, double check that the card, the message has been passed on.
Very definitely.
Because it is...
Well, but also, a more important piece of information, Mike, I'm sorry to override you, but a more important information isn't to make sure that the cards are going to be replaced that were stolen, but any others need to be replaced. I went through a similar experience. Some cards of mine were stolen, and when I phoned, the bank said, well, obviously we will issue replacements, and all of that happened very quickly. But there are other cards on those accounts. My wife has cards on those accounts. And they asked me whether I wanted those replacing or not, and they never told me to cut them up. And I said, no, I'm not bothered, they won't have seen them. But that's slightly different in that they were not taken from my home. Had they been taken from my home, it's possible that the individual could have taken the numbers down. So they were slightly different, but they gave me the choice. So what I'm pointing out to you is that it is not automatic that they will require you to destroy the ones you've still got.
No, but that's the instructions they gave
Well,
us.
indeed, yes. That's
and when I challenged the lady over the phone, she said, well, why did we tell you to do that? And as you can
exactly,
imagine,
that is
I
not...
went apeshit. I said...
Or even got cross. That wasn't what she should have said. I mean, as I say, this is poor communication, is what's happened here. But it's good advice, Mike, and we're grateful to you for it.
OK.
Good luck. And think of the money you're saving. Now, have a good one.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Headline News.
4 British soldiers, one of them a woman, have been killed in an explosion in southern Afghanistan. Their next of kin have been informed. The Parliamentary Commissioner for Standards has partially upheld a complaint into the expenses arrangements of the husband and wife Cheshire Conservative MPs Anne and Nicholas Winterton. And a 10-year-old Bolton murder case is to be re-examined by Greater Manchester Police's Cold Case Review Unit. Manchester's weather, a wet afternoon, breezy with temperatures reaching 15 Celsius at best. I'm Mark Edwardson.
BBC Radio Manchester. 2020 traffic.
Well, a problem with the underground wiring near the Mumps Crossroads in Oldham means that the one-way street, that's Yorkshire Street, is closed off, I'm afraid, at the moment around Brook Street and the junction with Lees Road, so watch out for some slight delays on the approach. Better news in Rochdale, though. Those lights are now fully functional once again on Manchester Road at the A58 around Edinburgh Way, and traffic moving fairly freely on a number of routes surrounding Manchester. The M602 moving freely into Manchester, and again, no reported delays on the M60 or the M62. Don't forget, if you can update us further though, do get in touch hands-free on 0161 244 4951. I'm Cara Banks.
BBC Radio Manchester. Sports with Will Perry.
Well, Lancashire will be looking to put last night's 2020 Cup defeat to Durham behind them when they go to Headingley for the Roses match this evening. The Red Rose lost their 100% record in the competition as Durham won by 6 wickets at Old Trafford, but they do stay top of the North Division table. Well, Lancs captain Stuart Law is ready for the War of the Roses.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Probably looking forward to playing it here rather than at Galatasaray. You know, it's never fun getting hit in the back of the head by, you know, Scotch eggs and flip-flops and sand shoes and sandwiches, and that's what we've got to look forward to. You're fielding in front of the Western Terrace, so probably save a good day out for Dominic Cork out there. He'll really enjoy that.
Well, it certainly promises to be a feisty encounter. You can catch all the action here on BBC Radio Manchester, ball-by-ball action in Manchester Sports from 6 o'clock. Andrew Flintoff will continue his comeback today after being out for 6 weeks with a side strain. Freddie will play on day 2 of Lancashire's second 11 game with Durham at Alderley Edge. Rain permitting, of course, and severe rain has delayed the start of the second one-day international between England and New Zealand at Edgbaston. The forecast doesn't look good in Birmingham, with heavy rain expected for the rest of the day. England lead the 5-match series 1-0 after winning in Durham on Sunday. Well, we heard yesterday that the MCC said the controversial switch-hit shot used by England's Kevin Peterson during their recent one-day win against New Zealand is legal and within the laws of the game. So good news for Peterson going into today's second one-day international. But some of his England teammates, like Graham Swan, they're not convinced they can muster the shot.
I'm waiting for a bigger crowd, to be honest. I did practice it today, and all I'll say is it's a work in progress. I think is the best way to put it. It was an absolute shambles. I ended up falling on the week, pirouetting on the pitch, a bit like Shahid Afridi did. You know, it's terrible, and I've got a big bruise on my thigh to show for my effort.
Well, Lancashire fans who were at Lancashire's defeat last night to Durham. Just to put you straight, apparently Mal Loy's switch hit shot wasn't a switch hit shot, it was a reverse slog. That's according to the captain, Stuart Law. You have to change your hands for it to be a switch hit shot. There you go, Beswick, if you're thinking of...
what do you change them into?
You just have to change your hands over onto the other side. That becomes a switch hit, otherwise it's a slug.
OK. What was that, a switch?
Switch hit. A switch hit 6.
You have to say that carefully. Go on, yeah.
I'll carry on now, Beswick.
OK.
Today at Euro 2008, Holland will find out who they'll play in the quarter-finals. The Dutch face the winners of this evening's game between Russia and Sweden in Innsbruck. Russia need to beat Sweden to advance to the last 8, while Sweden only require a draw to progress. The day's other match sees Spain, who are already through. They take on Greece in Salzburg. Well, the French Football Federation will announce their decision on the future of coach Raymond Dominique on July the 3rd. Dominique's job is thought to be on the line after the two-time European champions crashed out of Euro 2008 at the group stage following a 2-0 loss to Italy. Well, France's former captain Marcel Desailly says Dominique hasn't helped his lack of consistency in team selection.
The players get a bit annoyed because he is quite, you know, he changes all the time his mind, and also he's quite controversial as a coach. And then this annoys the players at the end of the day. But it starts from the players. They have not taken the lead. They have not taken, you know, the game on their hands to show that, yes, at least it's difficult for them, but they will try to play.
Well, Aston Villa are set to sign Steve Sidwell from Chelsea for £5.5 million. Sidwell made only 7 Premier League starts last season following his move from Reading. A new Chelsea manager, Luis Felipe Solari, has deemed the midfielder surplus to requirements. In the tennis, Andy Murray has been seeded number 12 for next week's Wimbledon Championships, 1 place below his world ranking. Well, the British number 1 will therefore avoid the top 3 seeds, Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal and Novak Djokovic, in the first 3 rounds. New world number 1 and French Open champion Ana Ivanovic is Serbia. Is the top seed in the women's singles, with compatriot Jelena Jankovic second, Maria Sharapova's third, with title holder Venus Williams number 7. In rugby league, Wales have followed England's lead by appointing an Australian as their new coach. Former Brisbane Broncos assistant John Dixon, who's been in charge of Celtic Crusaders for the last 2.5 years, is the successor to Martin Hall, who's paid the price for Wales's failure to qualify for this year's World Cup. Well, the Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport, Andy Burnham, who's also the Lee MP, he'll be our guest on tomorrow night's Rugby League Hour with Jack and Trev. And finally, Duke of Marmalade goes for a 3rd successive Group 1 win in the Prince of Wales Stakes in the feature race at Royal Ascot this afternoon.
Mornings sound better with Eamon O'Neill and Diane Oxbury.
Eamon and Diane.
Princess Anne went to the HP sauce factory in Wigan, and when she got there to open this new wing of the HP sauce factory, she couldn't get her words out, so they tipped her upside down and smacked her up.
Eamon and Diane and you.
I was in the local petrol station and I was in the queue and the lady in front of me said, "Oh, I'm glad you've reopened. At least I know your diesel's fresh."
The station with Eamon and Diane for breakfast.
Well, they really pushed the boat out on the marketing, didn't they, on that one?
Back tomorrow morning from 6 at BBC Radio Manchester.
A very good morning to you. 0161 228 2255, Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk and 07786 206 951 for the text. John says, "You're a disgrace, Alan. We all know you had nasty parents, and maybe that's what makes you like you are, a nasty, horrible, cold man." Well, I may well be a nasty, horrible, cold man, because I am a nasty, horrible, cold man. I don't give a toss whether you think that or not. However, you're wrong in what you claim we all know. I didn't have nasty parents. I had exactly the opposite. I had absolutely fantastic parents. Many people look at my father and used to look at my mother and look at them together and think, how did they get him? Exactly. So, no, you're wrong. I had a fabulous childhood with fabulous parents. And I've still got my dad, and he's still fabulous. But there you are. So, no, John, you're wrong on that count, but you may well be entirely correct in describing me as a nasty, horrible, cold man. And certainly driving in this morning, when my guide told me it was minus 37 degrees, I would have been cold then. Paul in Wigan. Hiya, Paul.
Hiya, Alan. How you doing?
I'm all right.
Good stuff. I just wanted to make a comment about, you know, all these comments about the dogs.
Go on.
I was Well, I was listening a couple of months back when, you know, you was talking about this, and I wanted to call up then, and I never did. But you know, you made a comment about you would, you know, you'd sooner see the nicest animal put to sleep than the evilest human, which I just totally disagree with. Totally disagree with the comment, really.
Well, just to give it its context, what I said was that there is not one animal anywhere on the earth whose life is more valuable than that of a human, however bad the human. So you paraphrase me not far off accurate. So I actually think human life is more precious than animal life. I do.
Well, the way I look at it is, and I know what your answer is going to be to the question, but, you know, if you want to take the nicest animal in the world, you know, and you want to make an example, if I had Lassie on one side of me, the movie star, which is one of the most famous animals in the world, and he had a murderer, a convicted murderer at the side of me, and somebody asked me, you know, put one of these to sleep, I know who I'd choose. I'd sooner put the human to sleep.
Well, you see, I would probably say, why do you want one of them dead?
Well,
I would probably want to, if we're going to have an intellectual exercise, I would intellectualise it further, if you wish, and say, why do you want one of them dead?
Well, I'm just saying that because you mentioned that, you would sooner have the nicest animal put to sleep than the evilest human. I'm just saying, you know, what would your choice be in that circumstance?
Unhesitatingly, if I could not renegotiate the deal into neither of them should die, if I couldn't do that and I was faced with the absolute unequivocal choice, Lassie goes. It's just a dog.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a dog owner, and I've got...
Fair enough.
You know, what you know, I've got what people call the devil dog, which is a Rottweiler, and I go to a number of dog shows. I go to Blackpool Dog Show, which is probably one of the biggest outdoor open championship shows in Europe, and you know, the number of dogs that you see there, and you know, the amount of pleasure and what people get out of the dogs, and you know, to brand an evil dog. You know,
but I don't. You see, we're slightly tangential again now. I don't think dogs are evil. I don't think there's any evil in a dog. I don't think there's any goodness in a dog. I don't think there's any evil in a cat, or a lion, or a tiger, or a snake. They don't do evil because they don't do human emotion. They do emotions of their own kind, I'm sure, but not being of their kind, I don't understand them. But they don't do evil. They do what they are bred, trained, and what their job is. They do what they do. Lions eat meat, so they kill things that are made of meat. Sometimes they're human, most of the time they're not, but they kill things that are made of meat, because meat is their dinner. They don't farm it. They don't, you know, lions don't organise battery farms so they can have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of very cheap wildebeest. They don't do that. They just catch what they can and they eat it. There's nothing cruel in that. I don't think animals are cruel. I don't think there are evil dogs.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there about, I don't think dogs are evil myself, like you said.
However,
they've not got human emotions.
It's just like I don't think there are evil machine guns. But I don't encourage everybody to have one.
Yeah, totally agree with what you're saying there, with dogs not being evil. But I just like I say, I just wanted to make the comment about, you know, the comment you made a couple of months ago about, you know, if you had to kill one of them, nicest animal or the nastiest person, then, you know, I know what my choice would be. Like you say, if you can negotiate on that, then it's good. But if I had to have a choice, then I'm sorry, but I'd have to kill the murderer.
What would you do if you later found that the murderer wasn't guilty?
Well, that was my next thing I was going to say. You know, obviously, if the murderer was caught and he put his hands up and he said, "Look, I've been..."
What, like Stephen Kishko did?
Well...
Who wasn't guilty, but pleaded guilty.
Well, yeah.
So
I suppose, yeah.
So you're okay. You'd still kill them just because they're stupid.
Well, if they're daft enough to admit they've done a crime that they haven't done.
Well, what if they're not daft enough? What if they're not daft enough? They just happen to be a bit stupid.
Well...
Let's shoot the stupid. It saves the dogs at least. Good old lassie. Good to talk to you, Paul.
No
Have
worries.
a good day. And I'm not making the point that Stephen Kishko was stupid. He wasn't. He was, in some respects, a very clever individual. But he was, should we say... I'm trying to find a way of discriminating. Educationally challenged? What is the... He was a bit simple. But he wasn't stupid. He was quite clever in other areas. Very good at languages, apparently. Jack Dearden's rung, pretending he knows something. Jack Dearden's rung to say the majority of racehorses are actually treated far better than humans. Yeah, you're probably right, Jack. But when did you last see a human get a bullet through their head for breaking its leg? Mike in Runcorn said, did any of your listeners see what looked like a tornado at around midnight well, it would be around midnight last night, moving towards the direction of Frodsham/Chester? I can't speak for that, but Laura's in Urmston. Hiya, Laura.
Basically, I'm just ringing because I was listening before to the gentleman that was talking about, you know, how he rang up the bank.
Yes.
About his bank cards. I actually work in a contact centre myself, at the banks, and I find sometimes that, you know, you get customers that come through, and, you know, they've spoken to India because they're the only ones that are open early hours in the morning, because it's daytime over there.
Yeah.
And you just find, I know how frustrating it is, and I understand, you know, obviously where they're coming from. But the thing I find is they come through and they've automatically got this opinion that because we work in call centres, you know, we're a bit stupid, we're a bit slow. But in fact, we're not. And, you know, I just find that, you know, although he gets frustrated because things weren't done and, you know, he was given misinformation, I just think because of what, you know, customers like himself that say these things, then every other advisor that works at contact centres gets tarnished with the same brush. I just don't think, you know, it's not the case. I mean, myself, I am, you know, from point of view of, you know, working and what my managers and things think, I'm a very good customer advisor, and, you know, I make sure I do know what I'm talking about. You will come across people that don't, but I just think, you know, is it unfair the way you tarnish people with the same brush?
In the case that the gentleman was talking about, his case, I mean, it may well be different at different banks, but I suspect it's not, because security is one of those universal catch-all things, isn't it? He was told, he claims, he was told by the call centre operative, the one in India almost certainly, he was told by the call centre operative that he needed to destroy one set of cards. Now, my understanding is that that's not the normal course.
No, I mean, I've never come across anything like that where, you know, an advisor would say that.
Neither have I.
It's not something that is a general thing that's said. I mean, maybe whether he's misheard it or what. I do find a lot of times, you know, you'll get customers that come through and they've said this, that and the other. Now, I know if I say something to a customer, I always note it down on the account so that, you know, other advisors know what I've said. I know some people won't do that, but it then means that, you know, everyone is, you know,
we all know where we stand there. When things go awry, we know where we stand, yes.
Yeah, and I just feel that, you know, the way he was saying it, I've never heard of anyone being told, you know, if it's on a joint account, to cancel their cards when only one set of cards has gone missing. And it's just like, well, I just didn't understand where he was coming from. The fact, fair enough, he's gone through to India, and there's a big hoo-ha. And I know a lot of customers, you know, find it annoying when they go through to India. But, I mean, the bank I work for, which it did sound like the one I work for, to be fair.
So go on.
I found that, you know, a lot of our advisors that are over in India do speak very good English. They are all they get taught the Queen's English.
That's where we're going wrong. No one around here understands that.
I know, yeah. And, you know, we actually send a lot of advisors from the UK over to India to go and train these advisors up, and we always send, you know, the best of the best over there, the ones that know what they're doing. And I just think, well, I find that a lot of the time it's the branches where a lot of the things go wrong rather than the contact centres. So, I mean, I just feel that he was basically tarnishing me with a brush. Somebody that, you know,
anyone that says they're all the same, and I'm now about to commit the same offence, anyone that says they're all the same is always wrong.
Yes.
Because they are never all the same.
No, and I just felt, you know, I had to say my point because, I mean, you know, it's my job, it's what I do.
Good on you.
And, you know, I just felt he was putting me down, basically.
Laura, thank you. Laura, not Lara. Laura, thank you very much indeed. Have a good day.
Cheers. You too. Bye.
My mate Dave, who used to be a deputy head teacher, when he retired, took some work in a call centre, and he found it frustrating because he had to work to a format, and that was the reason he left teaching. Ah, well, such is life. Good morning, Dave. Doesn't work in the call centre now. Doesn't answer me emails either.
I'm Becky One. Join me this afternoon from 2 for Cafe Society from the heart of Urmston on BBC Radio Manchester.
Then again, who can blame him? 0161 228 2255, Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk and text on 07786 206 951.
95.1 FM, DAB Digital Radio, and the World Wide Web. This is Manchester. BBC Radio Manchester.
At 1 o'clock, 4 more British soldiers die in Afghanistan, and 2 Cheshire MPs did break the rules on expenses, according to an inquiry report.
England against New Zealand, delayed because of the rain.
It still looks rubbish out there. Outbreaks of rain on and off all the way through the day. Top temperature 14 Celsius.
And don't forget, if you're heading around the Oldham area at the moment, near to the Mumps Crossroads, you might experience some delays. One of the streets around that ring road there has been closed off because of problems underground with the electrical wiring.
Good afternoon, I'm Mark Edwardson. 4 British soldiers have been killed in an explosion in southern Afghanistan. Their deaths bring to 9 the number of British soldiers killed in the last 10 days. Here's our diplomatic correspondent, Paul Adams.
The 4 British soldiers, including one from the Intelligence Corps, were killed yesterday afternoon when the vehicle in which they were travelling was caught by an explosion. The Ministry of Defence, which has yet to name the soldiers, says they were engaged in what is described as a deliberate operation east of Lashkar. I understand the dead include a woman, the first British female soldier to die in Afghanistan. 3 soldiers were killed in the blast and 2 wounded. One of the injured was pronounced dead on arrival at a medical facility at Camp Bastion. The 5th soldier is described as being in a stable condition. Next of kin have been informed.
The Cheshire Tory MPs, Sir Nicholas and Anne Winterton, have been found to have broken MPs' rules on expenses. The Commons Committee on Standards and Privileges ruled they'd claimed rent on a flat in London that they'd actually bought outright, but they accepted that the breach was accidental. Speaking at Prime Minister's questions this lunchtime, the Congleton MP, Anne Winterton, kept the subject well away from housing.
How can the Prime Minister expect the people of this country to obey our laws and to trust the government if the government itself flagrantly ignores the European Union rule that if a treaty is rejected by just one country, it falls?
The government's advisor on crime and communities says more needs to be done to restore your confidence in the criminal justice system. In a report commissioned by the Prime Minister, Louise Casey concluded that too often people found the system distant and unaccountable. It follows the sentencing last Friday of a 14-year-old boy to 2 years' supervision after he admitted causing £2 million of damage to the village church at Newhay. Local people there are angry at the sentence and believe it shows the judiciary's out of touch.
The judges, they don't seem to put them away, they don't seem to punish them or anything.
They're just not giving long enough sentences out. They just can get away with murder nowadays.
I think the justice system is out of touch, it is outdated. Things need looking at, things do need changing.
I think it's all messed up. All the legal system, everything, it's just messed up. Everybody's too soft.
Labour have confirmed they won't put up a candidate against the former Shadow Home Secretary David Davis, who's resigned as an MP in a stand on civil liberties. He formally stood down this morning, prompting a by-election in his East Yorkshire constituency. Cyclists have been protesting against the fact you're not allowed to take bikes on Greater Manchester's trams. You are allowed to take on prams, wheelchairs and buggies, but environmentalists are calling for new trams to have space for bicycles too. Dave Coleman from Manchester Friends of the Earth says the rules are driving people off public transport and back into their cars.
At the moment, I cycle to Victoria Station when I work in Oldham. I put my bike on the train, lock it up safely, get off at the far end and cycle 2.5 miles to the place I'm working during the day. But when the train is replaced by the tram, if nothing changes, I won't be able to make that journey because I won't be able to take my bike on the tram. Potentially, I'll be left in a position, because there's no bus route that works at the far end, of actually having to drive to Oldham to work.
BBC Radio Manchester Sports with Ian Cheeseman.
Well, a severe rain has delayed the start of the second one-day international between England and New Zealand at Edgbaston. The forecast down there isn't too good either. Heavy rain is expected for the rest of the day, so the prospect of perhaps no play will follow the progress throughout the day. Lancashire, of course, will be hoping that the weather over in Yorkshire isn't too bad. They're at Headingley tonight for the Roses match. It gets underway at 5:30. We'll have ball-by-ball commentary from 6 o'clock with the early stages online. Andy Flintoff's also hoping for good weather today as he continues his comeback after 6 weeks on the sidelines with a side strain. He'll play on day 2 of Lancashire's second 11 game with Durham at Alderley Edge, rain permitting. Rain, of course, won't affect the progress of Euro 2008. Holland will find out who they'll face in the quarter-finals tonight. The Dutch face the winners of this evening's game between Russia and Sweden in Innsbruck. Russia need to beat Sweden in advance to advance to the last 8, while Sweden only require a draw to progress. And Andy Murray has been seeded 12th at Wimbledon. Defending champion Roger Federer is the top seed in the men's singles, and the singles winner from the French Open, Anna Ivanovic, is the number 1 seed in the women's.
BBC Radio Manchester, satellite weather with Heather Stott.
Well, this afternoon it is generally wet and it feels cool, and it's going to be windy as well. That rain will be on and off throughout the afternoon, and it could be heavy for a time, particularly across the Pennines. Top temperatures getting to 15 Celsius.
Lunchtimes belong to Beswick.
Allan Beswick.
BBC Radio Manchester.
That was Heather Stott doing the weather, of course, and she was talking earlier when presenting till 12. She was talking to a woman whose name I've forgotten as well, but she'd written a book, the woman that is, The Diary of a Call Girl. And the lady, during the course of the interview, said that, well, it's a bit like writing or painting or the arts or whatever. It's a calling. I know. And I said, come on, I'll get off it. Anyway, Julie, who says she's at work on rainy Oxford Road in Manchester. Aren't we all, dear? She says, that was awfully patronising, wasn't it? I'm sorry, Julie. Anyway, The Diary of a Call Girl. I've read a couple of press pieces about this book. Indications of drug use and family breakdowns suggest a less than happy state of mind on the part of the author. I reckon the conditions that lead a woman into prostitution are extremely negative. It's not a matter of a career change. Recall the mural of Betty Page on the side of Affleck's Palace. She was and is celebrated as a burlesque star. But the part about where she was raped as a teenager and ended up in a mental institution is swept under the carpet. It would suit the consciences of men who keep women on the streets by referring to prostitution as a calling. How much further will women's human rights slide? Prostitution as art? Jesus, says Julie. I agree with the concept that prostitution is not art. It's a bloody awful job. Usually for bloody awful money. Some of them, of course, make a very good living at it, what they call the upmarket prostitute. But, of course, when the upmarket prostitute, as happens, loses her youthful looks and perhaps develops more mature looks, her, should we say, customer base changes, and even some of the very expensive high class, as they're called, call girls, end up at the end of their days on the streets turning tricks for a tenner, as the phrase goes. So, Julie, I'm with you all the way, but it wasn't a man that made the claim that it was art, it was the author, a woman, who, of course, I've no idea, I wish to cast no aspersions on her, but may well have never been a call girl and may just have seen a good way of writing a book. I have no idea. Worse things have happened. But I take your point, Julie, I have no argument against it at all. Marion in Blakely. Hiya, Marion.
Hiya, Alan, how are you?
I'm very well. What have you got for us?
I'm very upset.
OK.
And I mean very upset. I'm getting more upset by the day.
Oh, dear.
I opened the paper yesterday and there was this dreadful picture of 5 British paratroopers driving along in the hearses, and people were very respectfully sort of bowing their heads at the pavement and what have you, but it didn't make any difference. 5 dead young lads. This morning, another 4's just been killed. And then underneath this particular picture was one of George Bush being feted round England. Lunch with the Queen, Heathrow Airport closed, God knows how many pounds to entertain him, and hailed as the conquering hero, his farewell tour. I wish it was his farewell tour, farewell down in a big hole, with his friend Tony Blair and the Wicked Witch of the West, who's now making millions and millions of pounds between them on the American circuit. Alan, what's going wrong?
Well, I don't...
What's wrong with us as people that we're allowing it?
I have some difficulty with the question because I don't know what you mean by what's going wrong.
Why are we there? I mean, Brown announced yesterday that he was sending more troops. We had
another 250 to Afghanistan. Yeah.
A general came on this morning and said there just isn't enough ground troops there. You need to put a lot more in. But the numbers in the army are obviously people aren't joining up, quite rightly so.
Well, okay, let's deal with that first of all. I have to be very careful that I say everything I want to say in this sentence rather than just half of it. But when troops die, I have two feelings. I have great regret that they lost their lives and that their families have lost their loved one and their friends have lost their friend. But I have no illusion that that is their job. That is what they do. They offer to die for their country, and from time to time they do die for their country. That is the nature of the job they chose. Now, that's not to say that I agree or, in fact, disagree with the campaign they are embarked upon. But their job as a member of the forces is to do what the politicians say and, if necessary, to lose their life doing it. And that's what they volunteer for. They're not a conscripted army. So whilst it's sad when paratroopers and Royal Marine Corps and all the rest of them, when it's sad that they die, because it's sad when anyone dies at work, they are just doing their job they're paid to do and volunteered to do.
But I agree with that, Alan.
I know.
I do agree with that.
Then we get the next question, don't we? Why are they there? Because the politicians we elect thought it would be a good idea and thought it would be good for our country. That's it.
But, yeah, OK, I go along with that to a certain extent, that they volunteered, that was the job, and you take the risk. How many of the generals, commanders-in-chiefs, etc., have told us that they've not got the right equipment? Again, this morning, this general said, you know, a lot of this could be avoided if they had the helicopters.
Marion, there has never been a general that said, no, we don't want any more stuff. We've got everything we need, don't you? We don't need any more troops. Good Lord, no. Generals always complain, as do admirals, brigadiers and everybody else, that they haven't got enough to do the job. That's what generals do. That's not to say they're wrong, but the equipment that soldiers, sailors and air personnel are sent into battle with is never perfect. They said it at D-Day, we haven't got enough. They said it at Arnhem, we haven't got enough. They said it at Balaclava, we haven't got enough. They said it at Waterloo, we haven't got enough. It's the role of the soldier, the sailor and the air personnel to do what is necessary with what they've got.
I think, though, in all those battles, and I agree again with what you've said, we won. I don't think this is a war we're going to win. I think it's another Vietnam, and I'm frightened that shortly, and I do feel personally that it is going to escalate. They're going to. What if they bring the draft in? What happens then? And meanwhile,
well, they won't bring the draft in, and for two reasons. One, it would be politically suicide if they brought in the draft. I can't speak for the United States, but I suspect it's not the case. And two, there will be no need for the draft. We're losing soldiers. Good Lord, this is a ghastly thing to say. We're losing soldiers at a very slow rate.
Well, we've lost more already than we lost in the Falklands.
Well, yes, I know, but the Falklands happened over a few weeks. This is happening over a few years. We've been, I'm led to believe, we've been fighting in Iraq for longer than the Second World War. And I think we've lost quite a lot fewer than we lost in the Second World War. There's no need for the draft. We're not running out of troops in that respect. Good God, we could increase recruitment by doubling their wages overnight. It'd still be cheaper and more politically acceptable than the draft. What you're upset at is the politics of it.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, I am.
I understand that, but they say, those who are most critical of the war, they say it's just about oil. But you just look what 4 days of a tanker driver's dispute has done to this country. Imagine if the dispute was we haven't got any oil. What would it be then? They've got a dispute in Spain with the tanker drivers, and the shops in Spain are empty. It's like the Soviet Union in the 1960s. There's no food, there's no toilet rolls, there's no water. So I think Spain would think, hang on a minute, this being without oil's crap, let's have a war.
I don't know, it's just the sheer hypocrisy of it all that gets me. I mean, again yesterday, they've let that guy out, what did they call him, the mad preacher. Bin Laden's...
Abu Qatada.
That's the one. Is Ben Laden's best friend here. And, yeah, he's got about 7 or 8 kids that, will be kept comparatively well, and fair enough, it's not the children's fault. And him, all right, he's under a curfew and he can't use this and he can't use that. Won't stop him. Why the hell don't they deport him? They're fighting terrorism, they're fighting this, they're fighting that, and yet they shoot themselves in the left foot because they let evil men that encourage the terrorism to stay here. And don't tell me it's because, we can keep an eye on him, because I don't believe that neither. I don't know.
All right, Marion. Good to talk to you. Thank you very much.
OK, Alan.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
day. Cheers. 0161228 2255. Dave, cleaning windows in Sale, says, I've just seen a copper in his van eating a butty whilst driving. 1 rule for them and 1 rule for us, yeah? That's what he says. Malcolm in Wigan, hiya.
Hiya. Talking on the 42 days.
Yes.
One thing that the media haven't picked up on, which I will do for the first time on GMR, is the point that the majority of English MPs, and I think English and Welsh MPs, voted against the 42 days.
We've already said that.
Have you said it?
Yeah, the day after the vote.
Oh, right. Well,
when they had to be, quote, rescued by the Irish.
No, not rescued by the Irish, per se.
I know what you mean.
Rescued by the Scots.
Well, the Scots as well, yes.
Yeah, I mean, the Scots made the difference. If
well, they all made the difference.
Well, yeah. But
you can't get the numbers just by saying, we'll only count them over there. They all made the difference.
Yeah, they all made the difference.
Indeed.
But the irony of it is that the SNP, who now rule Scotland effectively at the local level, and are committed to... There is a clear commitment now within the Scottish Parliament there's going to be an independence vote in 210, yeah? You're aware of that, are you?
Yeah.
They are against the 42 days. So you've got a situation where the majority of MPs within England and Wales are against 42 days, and the ruling party in Scotland, as it now is against 42 days. I don't see where the legitimacy comes from. And I would hope that the House of Lords would vote it down.
Well, I think your hope will be granted. They'll certainly vote it down in the first instance, and I think we'll probably vote it down in every instance. The issue then will be whether the government implements the Parliament Act and rams it through without the Lords, as it is entitled to do.
Yeah, it may well be.
We shall see.
But isn't there a question about if they have to wait a year, and if the government falls in that year, then that does not become law? Is that right?
I don't know. Simple answer. What have you got against the 42-day detention?
Well,
given the fact that it isn't just straightforward, the cops can hang on to them for 42 days, whatever, they have to, or as they approach 28 days, they have to make an approach to the Home Secretary. The Home Secretary then has to report that fact. I don't think it'll form a debate as such, but has to report that fact to the Commons.
Well, I mean, we have to go off what I would call the normative. When you look at virtually every other European country, including, ironically, Russia, which we used to accuse of
Well, I'm asking you your opinion. I don't need to know what you think of the Russian system and any other. It's just I'm short of time, Malcolm. We're coming up to the news.
Well, the point is that if the norm in every other European country, Russia 5 days, Canada 24 hours, 48 hours, Italy 12 days, this country 5 days, this country 7 days, this country 14 days, Kenya I think 14 or 7
Okay, so
days.
what's your opinion? I'm not asking you for a comparative with others. If the only way you can intellectualise your opinion is to look at all the other countries and say, let's have that, then we'd have capital punishment back. So
No, we wouldn't, because
Malcolm,
most European countries don't have that.
Well, Russia's not in Europe, as far as I'm aware, or China, or those other
Yes,
countries
it
you
is.
mentioned.
Russia is in Europe.
We can argue about that, but we'd have to have a discussion about where the boundary is. Are you going to give me your opinion and the explanation for it, or are we going to just have a list of countries and then we'll all go home happy?
Well, the answer, there are a whole mass of reasons. The fundamental one is that if the police cannot come up with evidence, then it's a grotesque injustice to hold someone for what is effectively a 6-week, or in today's terms, it would be the equivalent of a 3-month prison sentence merely on suspicion.
But 6
they
weeks.
have to produce
Malcolm,
evidence.
good on you. Thank you very much indeed. Sorry to rush you, but you know how the world is.
Radio Manchester. Headline News.
4 British soldiers have been killed in an explosion in southern Afghanistan. Their deaths bring to 9 the number of British soldiers killed in the last 10 days. The Parliamentary Commissioner for Standards, John Lyon, has partially upheld a complaint into the expenses arrangements of the husband and wife Cheshire Conservative MPs Anne and Nicholas Winterton. And a 10-year-old Bolton murder case is to be re-examined by Greater Manchester Police's Cold Case Review Unit. Manchester's weather, a wet afternoon, breezy with temperatures reaching 15 Celsius at best. I'm Rachel Ferguson.
Kevin says via email, if we don't send troops abroad because they might get hurt, what's the point of having them?
BBC Radio Manchester. 2020 traffic.
Look now to Yorkshire Street in Oldham. That's the one-way street. It's closed off at the moment near the Mumps Crossroads between Old Church Street, Lees Road and Bell Street because of problems with underground electrical wiring. Taking a look now to Deansgate on the A56. The traffic for some reason looking very slow around King Street West. If that's the way that you're heading, do take care. And if you can update me further, then I'll give you that number shortly. Everything seems to be moving along fairly freely on the M602 heading in and out of Manchester around Junction 3 at the Regent Road roundabout. If you know different though, do get in touch, hands-free, and the number to dial is 0161 244 4951. I'm Cara Banks.
2020 traffic means you get an update every 20 minutes through the day.
Andy in Hazel Grove says, I wonder if you can help me regarding the petrol drivers' strike. For quite a long time we've heard of Polish, etc., workmen taking jobs as plumbers, electricians and builders at a lesser rate than the homebred workers. So my question is, why can't they be employed as tanker drivers? Is it a closed shop? Or am I missing something? Well, the answer's a simple one, Andy. There are no vacancies in the tanker driver job, because despite the fact that they say they don't earn enough, not many of them, according to what I read in the paper, and I've no way of quantifying it, but according to what I read in the paper, they're knocking out about 35 grand a piece. Whereas there is a shortage, continues to be a shortage of plumbers and of builders and all the rest of it. So that's how it works. You can only apply for jobs that actually are there. So that's why they end up doing those jobs rather than the others. But it is a good question. John in Wigan, are you?
Afternoon, Alan.
Afternoon.
A man in a pub told arguing me that if you die intestate, the next of kin is your mother.
Well, it depends on a number of circumstances, but...
If you're married, I mean.
No, your next of kin is your partner.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, your wife or your spouse, not your civil partner, not your, let me work this out. Not your common law partner, but your civil partner if you've gone through a civil relationship, but that would only be if you're of the same gender as your partner. But yes, it's your spouse or your civil partner, but not your common law partner.
Thank you very much. One quick
hang on. Your next of kin could... this is nothing to do with it. Listen, no. Well, there was a qualifying element, but your next of kin. It depends how you define kin. Your next.
When it comes to the will, I suppose.
Well, if you're talking about, which is why I asked, if you're talking about the rules of the division of property, then your principal beneficiary, and I mean principal, not entire, your principal beneficiary is your spouse or your civil partner. However, your next of kin, if you die without a will, is slightly different, because your next of kin could be your brother, because kin is about your familial, your familial relationship. But if we're talking about the rules of bloodline, if we're talking about interstate, that's about dying without a will, so it's about inheritance, and your the principal beneficiary of your estate would be your spouse. But of course, if there are children of you and your spouse, or you and, well, there won't be of you and your civil partner, will there, unless things change. The children of you and your spouse are also beneficiaries. So it's not straightforward, but your principal beneficiary, in simple terms, is your spouse or your civil partner.
So if you waited, like he said you'd have to do, which you will do, it takes, well, how long? That's a quick question. If you die intestate, two things he said. If you had a will, I've got a will from Engineering Union in my drawer.
Well, if you've got a will, you won't die interstate.
No, but what I'm saying is, I've not looked at this will for maybe for I don't know why I've not looked at it, but lately. But it's a piece of paper in a drawer. Somebody takes it out. Is on that? I'm not getting it out now because it'll take too long. But on that will, is there information to lead it back to the person who I made the will with?
Not necessarily.
Right. How would the person, when they go through the drawer and find this will?
They find this will. How will they know
how
it's
will
genuine?
They know it's not a piece of A4 made up in on a computer?
They won't. But the wording of a will is very important, which is why I always advise people to go to a solicitor to make a will. However, the wording of a will is very, very important. It has to be witnessed by two individuals, neither of which can be a beneficiary from the will, and it isn't just witnessed in that they signed that they know you and you did it. They have to be there, each with you at the same time when you sign it, and they have to witness that they together saw you sign it. So if there was any challenge, it would be possible to go back to the witnesses and say, were you actually witnesses to this? They don't even have to read it, they only have to witness your signature.
It's a good one, I don't remember this one.
Well, that's what happens with a will. For a will to be valid, there are a number of things that have to happen, including that the witnesses have to bear witness that they saw you sign that particular document in the presence of you and each other. So there are all sorts of other things as well. All right?
Yeah.
Good on you. Go on.
One quick question.
Yeah, that was a quick one. Go on.
If someone had been investigated by the authorities for misclaiming on a DHSS or whatever, and it's known that they were wrong and were...
Who's the they in that question? Who's the they?
The person that claiming the money had money and didn't declare it.
Yes.
In between him being charged, he dies.
Okay.
He's left a property.
Right. If a person obtained money from the state erroneously, and then they die...
Before they go to court.
Then they die before they go to court, the state can still claim the money back. Right. Even though there hasn't been a conviction, they can say, we believe he took it erroneously and we make a claim against the estate. Now, it might be that whoever's dealing with the estate would want some evidence, but yes, they can make a claim.
Thank you very much,
as indeed can I. I could claim. If you die tomorrow, John, I could write to your executor and say, that bugger owes me £3,000, when's he coffin? And they say, well, actually, he's in his coffin. But, of course, the executor quite rightly would say, you write to everybody, Bezzy, you little toad. And it's not working this time either.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, anyone can claim it.
Oh, is that right?
Oh, yes, but doesn't mean you'll get the money.
All right. Thank you very much.
Have a good day. 0161. Don't start. I'm not having... You can hear you writing now. They're all sitting there. Absolutely. And who can blame you? Somebody asked about a tornado. Chris in Southport says, I see tornadoes moving around the sky here quite regularly. Mind you, it's probably got more to do with the fact that Wharton's just over the Ribble Estuary. That isn't funny. Not funny at all. Chris from Wilmslow, my wife decided to transfer an ISA worth about £3,000 from Bank A to Bank B in February 2008. The ISA left Bank A at the end of February, but didn't arrive at Bank B. We've heard of this before, haven't we? After many phone calls and visits to both banks, we ended up by making a formal complaint to Bank A. The money finally arrived at Bank B last week. Although the interest was backdated to the end of February, there was no explanation to how the problem occurred or compensation for the aggro phone calls, etc. A token £50 would have been appreciated. Chris from Wilmslow, write to Bank A and say, whatever happened, your fannying around cost us this much. And see what the response is. You never know. They just might give you a tenner for your stamps. You never know. I won't bank on it. Alan, I wouldn't be surprised if most of the people who complain about troops getting killed voted for this government. That's Steph in Old Trafford. John in Bolton. Hiya, John.
Hiya, mate. You're right, Alan. I was just a quick one, just a bit of a warning, really, for your listeners. I booked an hotel in London on the internet. So I went through the thing as you do, as you book in the hotel. Just as it got to where you pay, I put my credit card in. Just as I got to where you pay, I pressed sort of process, and it crashed. The system crashed. So I left it a day. I see if I got an email from the .com
confirming your booking, yeah.
Which I hadn't. So. Right. We were going the day after, so I thought I'll ring the hotel and ask them. So I rang the hotel. I said, "Have you any confirmation of being a booking online?" She said no. So going the day after, I sort of, well, I'll be direct with you then. So I give her all the card details and did the same thing what I'd done on the online, direct with the hotel.
Yes.
So everything was fine. Then sort of 2 weeks later, when I got my credit card statement, I had both bills.
Oh, right, yeah.
One from the internet site and one from the hotel, which I paid. So I rang the hotel, and they said, well, that's not our problem. They said, many a time we have it's an 800-room hotel, and we have lots of people with the same name. So we'd never put it together that, there's 2 bookings type of thing.
And what's your question, or is it just?
Well, I was just warning people. Yeah. Really, I run the website as well, and they said it's not our problem either. So basically, I just paid twice for the.
Well, how much was it?
£350.
Okay, go to your credit card, and say to your credit card, "This is what happened.
Yeah.
The system cost me £300. There's no reason on earth why I would duplicate the booking. The hotel is saying I can't have my money back. I'm saying to you that I didn't get the service I paid for. You are the credit card. You're the supplier of finance. Therefore, you're subject to Section 75 of the Consumer Credit Act, and I want my money back off you."
Okay.
Now, it might not work because they'll say, "Oh, you gave us the instruction to pay it." And you say, "Yes, but I didn't get the goods I paid for." The reason I didn't get the goods I paid for was because the system crashed. Yeah. And I'm not standing that. So get on to them and see how it goes. And don't give up. The first letter back will say no, because they are bankers when all's said and done. So they lie through their teeth until they face something worse. So that's what you do. And you just keep on at them and say, "No, this is how it goes." All right?
Yeah, and just like, for your listeners, a bit of warning, if that happens, just be very careful about, sort of doing it direct.
Absolutely.
After.
We're going to do more of this as more and more people use the internet, of course. Good luck with it, John.
Yeah.
Cheers, mate. Thanks for the warning. Alex in Bury. Hiya, Alex.
Afternoon, Alan.
It is. What have you got?
Yeah, I'd like to discuss the proposed reforms to the criminal justice system.
The 42 days or some of the others?
No, the one that was headed by Louise Casey, the former head of the Respect agenda within the government.
Yeah, go on.
I read the leaked report that was in The Guardian the other day, but I'm not aware of all 32 proposals.
No, neither am I.
But I understand the aim is to restore confidence amongst the public about the criminal justice system as a whole.
It was a report about the criminal justice system, and it actually said that the public have lost confidence in the public. The public have lost confidence in the criminal justice system, and I don't know what recommendations it made, but do go on.
Well, as I said, I mean, I did quickly browse the leaked report or the article in The Guardian. I think it was on Monday. Yeah. But I think the ones that have been getting all the headlines are the fact that, getting people who do community service or community punishment or community payback, as it will be known,
this is the chain gang.
To wear high visibility jackets and so on, and to do humiliating acts of, public work. He'll be picking up litter and chewing gum and so on, so that the public can at least see that perpetrators are visibly being punished, as so to speak. And my whole view, and I've discussed these kind of things with you before, it's an absolute gimmick, and I don't think it will make one jot of difference, really.
When you say it won't make a jot of difference, do you mean... by which measure? Do you mean it won't make a jot of difference to those young people? They may or may not. They'll go out in exactly the same proportion and reoffend or not reoffend according to who they are, rather than the system. It won't change that. Or do you mean it won't make the public feel any better?
Well, no, I deal with both of those points. I mean, as regards to the public or victims of crime, they may well derive some satisfaction from seeing, offenders, perpetrators, punished in the community. But the bit about I guess the humiliation or the public shaming side of things, I don't think that will have much impact on those who are sentenced to do those types of works, unpaid work, punishment, call it what you like. I don't think it will... Sorry, after you.
Let me just examine what you just said. You said, I don't think it will make much difference to the offender. That's paraphrasing you, but that's what you said, yeah?
I agree.
Now, by that, do you mean it won't make it better and it won't make it worse?
I mean, the shaming, the public shaming aspect of it, because that's how I understand it. The whole thing about being visible in the community, and I think also one of the other reforms or changes was that convicted offenders would have their posters put up in the local community to say, Joe Bloggs was convicted at this court on this date of this offence, and it would go out, public notice boards wherever in the local town or community. So about, publicly, as I said, shaming or notifying the community of what the offender has done, so that it will act as a deterrent to those who have been convicted of those offences, and those who thought about committing those type of offences might think twice if they're going to be locally humiliated and shamed. I don't think that will have much of an impact.
Well, I come back to my question, because my question was, do you believe that the systems that are being discussed, in other words, humiliating the offender, you said, I don't think it'll have any effect, was your phrase, and I'm comfortable with that, but I want to know, do you mean that it will have no effect in either direction? It won't be better or worse? It'll be
I don't think it'll make things better.
Do you think it'll make things worse?
No, I don't think it's going to make things worse. I mean, I just don't think it will have any negligible or measurable impact.
I accept that. There are two things that we have to look at, though, aren't there? It isn't just whether it will diminish recidivism, which is an important thing to be sought, but we've yet to find something that actually does that in the eyes of the beholder, if you like, the public at large. But if the new system, assuming it ever came in, because it's only a discussion document...
That's right.
If the new system did come in and they were required to attend every day, and frequently many of them don't, as you may or may not know, if they were required to wear the chain gang bib, as it were, and if they were doing menial work that the public wouldn't like to do themselves, rather than some of the rather useful work they do presently sometimes, if all of that was so, and it just carried on the same, but the public felt better about it, given it doesn't change, in your view, it doesn't change recidivism or anything else, but makes the public feel better, that's valuable, isn't it?
Well, as I've said to you before, Alan, I am a probation officer. I do work with offenders, young and adult, so I'm, dealing with it from at the coalface. And, Yes, it may well, as I said, increase public and victim satisfaction. And I'm not saying that's without value. I'm not saying that. But if it's really about, as I said, trying to change the behaviour of offenders or...
But it's not about that, is it? It's not about that. You see, what the survey revealed, it's not a survey, it's a review, I diminish it, but what the review revealed was the public have lost confidence in the system. Now, you, as a probation officer, and many others in your field, and by that I mean what we might call the I can't think of the name of the field now.
Criminal justice.
Criminal justice was the broader one, but I was just thinking about the actually looking after criminals and trying to get criminals back on the straight and good, if you like, the rescue services. Thank you, yes. Rehabilitation was the word I was after, you're right. So, whereas it won't change that, people have lost confidence in your job. That's not to say it's your fault or anybody else's fault, but they have lost confidence.
I agree with that.
But part of the system is to make the victims and the public at large get confidence back. Now, if we can do something which, frankly, is not in truth beneficial, nor yet harmful, and yet the public feel better about it, that's not only an inert thing, that's a very good thing, isn't it?
But in my view, and I agree with that, but in my view, it's all style over substance. I mean, in my view, it will be cosmetic, and it will have the appearance of...
Well, one last question, because we're running out of time, and I've interrupted you, but I think I got your view.
Yeah.
But one last question, and that is this. If the public lose confidence in what you do, the very good work you and your colleagues do, if we lose confidence in it, whether you do it well or not will become irrelevant and we'll stop you doing it. That's for sure. So will it not therefore mean that if we can rebuild that confidence and yet leave you to do your good work, you might actually survive in that work for longer? I don't mean you personally, I mean the work itself.
Well, another thing that was mentioned in that proposal was that about, and again it's been mentioned before, it's about the privatisation or contracting out of certain types of traditionally done probation work, one of those being unpaid work. So, the reality for many of us in the probation service is it's probably going to happen anyway, by hook or by crook.
Good to talk to you, mate. Thank you very much indeed. Alex from Rochdale, I think he said.
BBC Radio Manchester. Headline News.
The Parliamentary Commissioner for Standards, John Lyon, has partially upheld a complaint into the expenses arrangements of the husband and wife Cheshire Conservative MPs Anne and Nicholas Winterton. And a 10-year-old Bolton murder case is to be re-examined by Greater Manchester Police's Cold Case Review Unit. Manchester's weather, a wet afternoon, breezy with temperatures reaching just 15 Celsius at best. I'm Rachel Ferguson.
And, of course, Alex was from Bury, not Rochdale.
BBC
I don't know why I told you that.
2020 traffic.
Well, if you're travelling along the M60 at the moment, then traffic seems to be moving nice and freely. No major delays have been reported. If you're travelling along the M56 to Sharston link, watch out for these roadworks whilst bridge maintenance work continues between 3 Bagley and 2 Sharston heading towards the M60. Narrow lane workings continue. And in Oldham, Yorkshire Street, the one-way street has been closed off because of an incident between Old Church Street and Lees Road near the Mums Cross Road. It seems there's been problems with the electrical wiring underground. Don't forget, if you can update me further, do get in touch, hands-free, 0161 244 4951. I'm Cara Banks.
BBC Radio Manchester Sports.
Good afternoon, I'm Ian Cheeseman. Rain has held up the start of England against New Zealand at Edgbaston. The forecast doesn't look good in Birmingham either, with heavy rain expected for the rest of the day. England, of course, lead the 5-match series 1-0 after winning in Durham on Sunday. Well, Lancashire will be hoping that the weather's set a little bit fairer over in Yorkshire, and they'll be looking to put last night's 2020 Cup defeat to Durham behind them when they go to Headingley for the Roses match this evening. The Red Rose lost their 100% record in the competition as Durham won by 6 wickets at Old Trafford, but they stay top of the North Division table, and Lancashire captain Stuart Law is ready for the War of the Roses.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Probably looking forward to playing it here rather than at Galatasaray. It's never fun getting hit in the back of the head by Scotch eggs and flip-flops and sand shoes and sandwiches, and that's what we've got to look forward to. You're fielding in front of the Western Terrace, so probably save a good day out for Dominic Cork out there. He'll really enjoy that.
Well, let's hope he gets the chance to be hit by a flip-flop and the weather doesn't let him down. It certainly promises to be an interesting encounter. You can catch all the action here on BBC Radio Manchester, ball-by-ball action from 6 o'clock. Before that, from 5:30 at the start, you can follow the game with full match commentary online. That's bbc.co.uk/Manchester. And Andy Flintoff's comeback has also been affected by the weather. They're hoping to get underway at Alderley Edge at around about 10 minutes to 2 as Freddie plays on day 2 of Lancashire's second 11 game with Durham. The MCC says the controversial switch hit shot used by England's Kevin Peterson during the recent one-day win against New Zealand is legal and within the laws of the game. So good news for Peterson going into today's second one-day international, if it ever starts. But some of the England teammates like Graham Swan aren't convinced that they can master the shot.
I'm waiting for a bigger crowd, to be honest. I did practice it today, and all I'll say is it's a work in progress, I think is the best way to put it. It was an absolute shambles. I ended up falling on the wicket, pirouetting on the pitch, a bit like Shahid Afridi did. It's terrible, and I've got a big bruise on my thigh to show for my effort.
Today, Euro 2008, which shouldn't be rain affected, though they've had plenty of rain. Holland will find out who they'll play in the quarter-finals. The Dutch face the winners of this evening's game between Russia and Sweden in Innsbruck. Russia need to beat Sweden to advance the last 8, while Sweden will only require a draw to progress. The days of the match sees Spain, who are already through, take on Greece in Salzburg. The French Football Federation will announce their decision on the future of coach Raymond Domenech on July the 3rd. Domenech's job is thought to be on the line after the two-time European champions crashed out of the competition at the group stage. France's former captain Marcel Desailly says that Domenech hasn't helped by his lack of consistency in team selection.
The players get a bit annoyed because he is quite, he changes all the time his mind, and also is quite controversial as a coach. And then this annoys the players at the end of the day. But it starts from the players. They have not taken the lead. They have not taken, the game on their hands to show that, yes, at least it's difficult for them, but they will try to play.
Aston Villa are set to sign Steve Sidwell, thought to have been a target for Manchester City from Chelsea for £5.5 million. In tennis, Andy Murray has been seeded 12 for next week's Wimbledon Championships. In rugby league, Wales have followed England's lead by appointing an Australian as their new coach. The former Brisbane Broncos assistant John Dixon, who's been in charge of Celtic Crusaders for the last 2.5 years, is the successor to Martin Hall. And finally, Duke of Marmalade goes for a third successive Group 1 win in the Prince of Wales Stakes in the feature race at Royal Ascot. Aidan O'Brien's 4-year-old has won the Prix Gannet and the Tattersalls Gold Cup already this season.
Your Sunday Morning Lion with Mike Shaft.
So how could you forgive?
At the press conference, one of the reporters said, well, what do you think of the man who killed your son? I was actually praying for the right answer, and I'm sure I was inspired by God to say, well, I forgive him.
Mike Shaft.
Tell me the premise of this new book.
When politics is broken and when it fails to address the biggest issues of the day, it'll take something as big as faith to move those mountains, and they are mountains indeed to be moved.
Manchester's faith, spirit, and life's difficult questions with Mike Shaft.
Serving the community at the highest level.
Sunday morning from 7 on BBC Radio Manchester.
American there answering Mike Shaft's question with not one cliche at all, was it? Moving mountains and all the rest of it. Paul says, Alan, I wonder whether you can clarify a confusing issue. A few days ago, media headlines stated that MPs had agreed on a pay freeze. However, just a day or so on, it's now reported that MPs are seeking large salary increases. Well, the media didn't report a few days ago that MPs had agreed on a pay freeze. It was ministers, and whilst they are MPs, not all MPs are ministers. So that was the confusion there. Ministers, and it now turns out the front bench spokespersons for the Conservative Party are also going to forgo their salary increase as front bench spokespersons. So it's not MPs. Heaven forfend that they should give up money. No. It's just ministers who have got plenty to be going on with. And Sean says, how soon we forget, and maybe we do. Today, he says, is the 207th anniversary of the Battle of Waterloo, fought over 3 days in June 1815, which, of course, means it's the 203rd anniversary, just in case you forget, Sean. Anyway, the 15th to the 18th of June, the final battle being given the name of Waterloo by the Duke of Wellington. I've heard no mention of this on the radio. I don't have a telly, but how soon we forget. Yep, 2 decades decades is very definitely soon. If we were going to remember classic moments of history, then perhaps we ought to remember that on this day in 1940, Winston Churchill said, "Let us brace ourselves to do our duty, and so bear ourselves, that if the British Commonwealth and Empire lasts 1,000 years, men will still say, this was our finest hour." This was at the moment that the French was collapsing before German forces at the start of the Battle of Britain. And rather interestingly, in the last few days, there have been stories about the French attempting to take over the Royal Navy to sort of grab it into theirs. And all I can say is if we did allow the French to control our army, air force and our navy, then at least we wouldn't be having all these little wars. Because one thing you can say about the French is they don't start wars. Surely. Alan, they don't finish them either, it turns out. Alan in Crumpsall, what can we do for you, sir?
Good afternoon, Elsa. Thanks for having us on for a few
Pleasure.
minutes. It's ironic about the Battle of Waterloo, what you just mentioned there. It was pouring down then all through the Battle, you know that.
Hence Waterloo, they'd have called it Sunloo otherwise.
Oh, it's pouring down, really. It's in 277 years, like nothing changes. What I'd like to get on about, though, is this 42-day detention about suspects.
Yes.
Well, it's self-explanatory, really, isn't it? I mean, they must be in what you call the suspect business to keep being picked up regarded as suspects, because men and women, because obviously, like, take your good self, you honestly days long, or anybody else, you won't be picked up if you're not a suspect. If they go back their everyday business, no matter what race they are,
Hang on a minute.
you're not picked up, are you?
Alan, are you actually telling me...
yeah.
Are you actually telling me that everybody that the police take into custody for questioning is guilty?
No.
Oh, I thought that was what you said when you said they wouldn't get picked up if they were innocent.
Yeah, but I mean, this scale of what the scale is.
Well, in the end, one is either guilty or one is not guilty. It's a bit like pregnancy. One is either pregnant or one is not. Are you telling me that there will never be a person who was taken into custody by the police who didn't actually do it? Is that what you're telling? All right. So there will be people who will be taken into custody by the police on suspicion of being involved in terrorism who, frankly, hadn't done it.
Well, I think they're putting themselves in that...
No. Never mind where they're putting themselves. Do you actually believe that there will be people taken into custody on suspicion of terrorism offences who didn't do it, who are, to use your phrase, as innocent as the day is long? Do you think no such people will ever exist?
Well, as I say,
well,
no.
I don't know. So you think there will be people... I don't want to put words in your mouth, Alan, but these are the words you seem to want there. You seem to think that there will be people taken into custody by the police for very good reasons on the part of the police who, it turns out, didn't do it.
But why? But why?
But do you believe those people will exist and do exist?
But why are they taking...
Do you or don't you?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But why are they taken into custody in the first place?
Because the police are not infallible. The police, like you, like me, make mistakes. Sometimes all the evidence points to one person. Turns out that person never did it.
Is it the Iranians who we're talking to now? Is it a specific group of people who keep... obviously it is who keep this 42-day detention.
No, they're not necessarily Iranian. Many of them, the people who blew up London Underground, if I remember correctly, were as British as you or I. We weren't Iranian or Iraqi or anything else. My understanding is that they were British through and through. Homegrown terrorism was the tabloid headline.
Well, turn on the I'm going to get shot down.
No, I'm not going to get shot down. I'm just intrigued at your somewhat convoluted argument that you believe that the police will sometimes make mistakes, but they'll never get it wrong. And I can't make that work as a sentence.
Well, I'll try another tack then.
Okay, you do that.
Another side to this coin is, a lot of these suspects, or they're not suspects, a lot of people are very, very clever. And Is that right? You're going to get paid £3,000 a day while just while being held?
Well, I don't think it's a guaranteed £3,000 a day, but if a person is taken into custody and is then held in custody for 42 days on suspicion of terrorism, with the approval for the last, I think it's, what will it be, the last 14 of those days, last 2 weeks of that, with the approval of the Home Secretary and Parliament, if those people are then released because there is no evidence sufficiently strong to hold them, the government says they will be compensated, they will be entitled to compensation up to and including £3,000 a day.
The full 42 days you're talking about, I don't know.
Well, it may well be the full 42 days, but up to 3,000 can mean fourpence or 40,000 or 400
per day. Yeah,
it can,
be anything.
but it it depends. I suppose you imagine it wouldn't be. You imagine if I was taken into custody for 42 days. When I came out, I wouldn't have a job. I wouldn't have earned anything for 42 days, but all the bills would have arrived. Everything I have to pay every week, the same as you, me and everybody else, all those would have arrived.
That's £126,000, isn't it?
Well, if that's the kind of money, you imagine they take a wealthy man into custody, a man who, I don't know, makes his living doing a day's work for £3,000, running a shop. Maybe he's a one-man business running a big shop, and the shop has to close. Why should he suffer when he's done nothing wrong? There's no evidence to show that he's done anything wrong. Why should he suffer?
Exactly. What I was going to say at the end of the day is a lot of clever people will engineer it to be taken into custody.
I would. I said straight away.
That will go on.
I know it will. As soon as they announced, if they guaranteed it was £3,000 a day. Now, bear in mind, it's up to. It's not guaranteed. But if they guaranteed it was £3,000 a day, I'd be blacking up and carrying a haversack with wires hanging out of it. I'm telling you, it's more than I get here. The bloody jails would be even. Well, they are even as it turns out. But I'd be out there. Look at me, fella. Bang! Go on. That scared you, didn't it? I'm on the underground, mate. Go on, lock us up, you bugger. Go on. I would.
Bound to happen. It will.
It's bound to happen. You've got to live in the winter. Good on you, Alan. Cheers. After you with the haversack. Dayglow vests some menial tasks. Sod it. Bring back the stocks, says Ivor in Stretford. That'll humiliate the offenders, keep the public happy, and obviate the congestion charge, because the council could sell tickets. Ivor, I'm a big fan of the stocks, so we're singing from the same hymn sheet. You like that? Oh, it was good, wasn't it? Yeah. We're singing from the same hymn sheet. David in Rochdale. Hiya, David.
Hello there. How are you? I'm
all right. What have you got?
Good. Just offer you an opinion on this dog fighting
Go on.
business. I think I don't agree with it, for one thing, and I think the reason is because it does seem to be that the whole idea of dog fighting or bear baiting or cockfighting is that people will get pleasure out of seeing suffering inflicted. It seems to me that the whole point of those activities is to see suffering, whereas in horse racing, maybe, it's just something that regrettably happens.
That'll be why they all stand by Beecher's Brook then, because they know none of the horses will fall there.
No, I don't think, I don't think people go to horse racing to watch horses fall. In fact, rather the reverse.
I promise you, if I had £1,000 on the horse coming second, it wouldn't bother me if the one in front snapped its neck.
No, but you don't, that's not why you go and watch horse racing, is it?
So why is the desire to see the beautiful beast running any more honourable an emotion than seeing the beautiful beast die? Why is that more honourable than one more honourable than the other? They're all human, instinctive emotions.
I don't think it is. I don't think it's a good idea to enjoy suffering.
Why not?
Because I just don't think it's. I don't think it's.
What about enjoying the, if you like, the outcome of suffering, like eating meat? The animals suffer. Don't let anyone fool you that they don't.
Oh,
they
yeah,
do.
I agree.
But that's okay.
I'm not. No, it's not. I don't agree with it.
So you're a vegetarian?
No, I'm not.
Oh, right. So you don't agree with it, but you carry on doing it?
Yeah.
I'd far sooner.
just like-
I would far sooner, in all the things that are available, I would far sooner people lived an honest life than a dishonest one.
Yeah, I take your point.
If you disapprove of it, then you ought to be looking at your motives and emotions. What you're actually saying is you're perfectly happy to have other people kill animals, butcher them, so that you can eat them, because the pleasure of eating them, and that's all you're doing it for, you're not doing it because it'll keep you alive, you can get round that. You're quite happy to have animals butchered, murdered, bred specifically to die, so that you can enjoy it.
Yeah, it's...
Why does that make you better than somebody who just likes watching dogs fight?
It doesn't. And
Oh, that's all right then.
I've got a problem with it, I must admit.
Well, let me know when you've solved it. Okay.
Can I just mention something else?
You've got about 10 seconds. Go
I've
on.
been talking about banks today. I've got a letter from a bank. At the bottom of the letter it says, please contact us if you'd like this in Braille, large print or audio.
Yeah, I love those.
Now,
They're brilliant,
why the hell
aren't
don't
they?
put it in Braille at the top of the letter so that people can...
It would be great. It would cost you about 50 times more. I suppose what they're doing is getting whoever's reading the letter out loud to you to say, would you rather read it yourself with the touchy-feely thing? Good on you, David. Keep eating the dogs.
I'll see you.
I'm back tomorrow. Do have a good day. Yes. I might go the pictures today. I don't suppose you care. Ta-da now.
It's Rose's night in cricket.